Hello, I'm Valerie Stimmick-Bailey. I run the travel blog Valerie and Belize that focuses on travel in Alaska and the American West. And I am so excited to be back for another installment in my 2025 Alaska seminar series. So, if this is your first video in the series, if it's your first time watching a video with me, this is a series that I do with a number of Alaskan destinations and national parks, ideally every year. It's historically been every other year, but in any case, we're back to help you get ready for your travels in 2025. And this specific video is all about Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, which undoubtedly you've heard of, as it is the largest national park in the entire system and is an incredible destination in Alaska. And it is accessible on the road system, which is an important piece of information if you want to try and visit, because not all of the parks in Alaska are on the road system. In any case, this video has been pre-recorded. I got questions from my community in advance that we're going to do after the presentation. If you have questions about visiting Wrangell-St. Elias, please put them in the comments below. I will review all of them, and if I need any support to get you the right information, I will reach out to Jamie, who's here with us, and people on her team in the National Park Service who can help me make sure we get you accurate information to help you plan your trip. So, without further ado, let's just get right into it. I've got Jamie with me from Wrangell-St. Elias National Parks team, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Hart, and right now I am acting as the Public Affairs Officer at Wrangell-St. Elias National Park and Preserve. But my normal job is actually the South District Interpreter, so I get to manage operations and my staff in the Kennecott area and the Chitina area. So I am usually kind of out in the field a little bit, and so I'll try to bring some of that information to kind of help you plan your trips as you're thinking about coming to Wrangell-St. Elias. So the basics for Wrangell-St. Elias, kind of just some things to know, and you probably already do know, as Valerie alluded to, we are really big. We are the largest national park at 13.2 million acres, and it's really hard to wrap your head around that and what that means. But I think that the main take-home message on that is that it takes a really long time to get from point A to point B. And a lot of times at Wrangell-St. Elias, we talk about how long it takes to get to different locations based on hours versus miles, because you can have different types of roads, or you might want to stop along the way. And so I kind of just wanted to get into the fact that not only are we big, but Alaska's big. And so to get to us, it takes a really long time, regardless of where you're coming from. And so I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a rundown. Our main park visitor center is right here at the Blue Star. And if you were driving from, let's say you flew in to Anchorage, which is over here in the left corner, that would take you about 3.5 hours just to get to Copper Center. So that's a little bit of a chore for one day. It might be a lot for wanting to stop and get out and stretch your legs. If you were coming from Fairbanks, which was actually off this image right here, that would be about a 4.5 hour drive. So it's a little ways as well. And if you're coming in from the Canadian border, at the Canadian border to our visitor center is about 4 hours. So those are just getting to our park. And what we usually recommend for folks is just to plan a little bit of extra time into your trip. We're a big park. We have 2 roads that sort of intersect in a couple places. And because it's going to take you a long time to get to our location, even just on the outskirts here by Copper Center, it's also going to take you a long time to get into the park. Our main park visitor center is in Copper Center, so it's right near Glen Ellen. And basically from there, if you traveled to the north to get up to Salana and the Nebezna Road, that's about an 1.5 hours one way. So it's a little bit hard to do that in a kind of a round trip, day trip, and still get into the park, because from there you're going to take another maybe 1.5 hours to go down on the Nebezna Road. So it's quite a long day for traveling. If you were traveling from our main visitor center to Chitina, that's about an hour one way. And that's those 2 locations are the first points where you can get into the park itself. Our main park visitor center just kind of sits right outside, but you're viewing the park from our viewpoints here on the campus. If you were driving all the way from our main park visitor center to McCarthy and Kennecott, that's about a 4-hour one way. So kind of keeping those things in mind and just trying to plan a little extra time. Some people think they can do those day trips, but it can be really exhausting and challenging, and a little less rewarding. So speaking of rewarding, the north part of the park, actually you can enter near Salana, and there's a ranger station there that can give you a little bit of information about the road conditions, which I think is really a good idea. There are some creek crossings that go across the road that would be really important to know, whether you need high clearance, whether there's been a lot of water running, or if it's safe for travel. That's a super important part of the Nebezna Road. It's a really great place for viewing wildlife, and also to get to see a lot of the mountains around us, the Mentasta Mountains to the north, or even the Wrangell Mountains to the south, which you can see a lot along the highway regardless. To the, let me go back, Nebezna Road. Here's a really good photo of just, fall colors, and just being able to kind of see the mountains and views along the way. There's a lot of little places you can pull out and park and camp, and just be aware that there is a lot of interspersed private property along the way. So just make sure that you're camping not on somebody's front lawn or driveway. To the south, we have the McCarthy Road. Like I mentioned, to get there, you have to travel from basically either Valdez or Copper Center to the Edgerton Highway. The Edgerton Highway then takes you down to Chittana. Chittana is a really popular place to be able to watch a lot of salmon fisheries, and a lot of people out dip netting, which is catching fish with a giant net, or fish wheels that spin around that try to scoop up the fish and slide them down into a bin. Two ways of getting some really great Copper River red salmon. I mention that because that's a really popular thing for people to come and see, and it's also popular for the people in Alaska to come and do. So it can be kind of busy during fishing season. McCarthy Road is about 4 hours one way, which I mentioned, and it goes from Chittana to the town of McCarthy. And it's really tricky because when you get to the Kennecott River in McCarthy, it is actually a place where you have to park your car and then walk across the footbridge and catch a shuttle. So it can be kind of a little bit different mentally, like preparing what you need for the day, taking water and food and snacks and all your gear, anything with you that you need to take for the day. From that shuttle stop, there's private companies that run all day during the main operation, and then they take you about 5 miles up to Kennecott, or you can also stop just a mile away at McCarthy. Kennecott is the home of the Kennecott Mines National Historic Landmark. It's a really beautiful place. It's a historic copper mining town. You can see here in a photo some really great historic buildings, the very classic red and white trim. And it's a great place to kind of learn a little bit about the mining history. And each of these buildings are open and, during the main part of the day. And you can wander around and see some exhibits that are inside. There's a park film there as well. This is my specialty, so you might hear me talking about Kennecott a little bit more than in the Nebezna Road or headquarters at our Copper Center location. But the McCarthy Road along the way is really a great spot to stop and just soak it all in and just kind of take your time. Again, that 4 hours, you want to get out, stretch your legs. There's a handful of stops along the way with some beautiful historic pieces that are left over from the mining days and the Copper River Northwestern Railway that would run along that same route back in the early 1900s. So that's a great stop along the way, a couple of great stops along the way. Let's see. Also, there is an area in the park that very few people get to go to, but is also very beautiful and scenic. The Yakutat area. Here we have a picture of Hubbard Glacier. This is usually something that is visited along cruise ships, but you can take the ferry or fly there. Again, this is a really popular view. The cruise ships sometimes come up into Icy Bay to go look at Hubbard Glacier, and it's really beautiful. Another area that I didn't touch on that is really important is sort of just your pre-planning at our park headquarters visitor center in Copper Center. And I was mentioning all those travel times are from that location because it's really good to kind of come there first and then get like your bearings and decide where you can go and get information. So all of this and much more explains why you might want to plan some extra time into your trip. There might be some unexpected detours, maybe some delays or delights. Some highlights as you're traveling south towards Valdez, there is the Worthington Glacier. The town of Valdez is really beautiful and has a lot of sights and things to go and do and see. And also, you might want to stop along the park roads and stay an extra night if you're camping along the way, or maybe you want to stay in lodging an extra night because it was just that much more enjoyable. So those are some things to think about. It is good to kind of plan ahead as much as possible, and I'll just talk a little bit about some of our resources. We are a very remote park, and depending on the time of year, there might not be very many services or amenities, or even depending upon the location where you are in the park. Our website is www.nps.gov/WRST, and I've shown it here because it just kind of has a lot. There's planning your visit, learning about the park, and you can also look at the getting involved. One highlight that is really important, that if you want to ask any specific questions of a ranger, you can email us under the contact us, which is at the bottom of every page on our website. So that's kind of helpful. And thinking about 2025, you might be daydreaming about what your next trip is. And what's new for 2025? It's hard to say. We're still in the planning process. We don't have a lot of the specifics just yet, but we will announce our visitor center and ranger station hours on our website. And so you can go to this site here, the operating hours and seasons. There's also a whole lot of information under the plan your visit and basic information that you can look and just kind of get some updates. We keep this updated during about late April, early May. We'll send out a news release that has the specifics about our summer services. So be on the lookout for that and check back to our website as frequently as possible. So some other things I wanted to touch on, and I think Valerie might ask me about this, but I just wanted to share with you kind of what's on my mind right now, which is winter experiences in Wrangell-St. Elias. And right now it has been pretty chilly. I think the last couple of days have been in the negative teens. And this is November 2024. So we are challenge in that it's different for people to come visit during wintertime for a variety of reasons, and the cold temperatures are one of them. You can get out and do some cross-country skiing, and these are some photos from a recent trip that I made. The hard part is sometimes it's difficult to get out into the park, so I cheated a little bit and showed some things in my neighborhood, but this gives you an idea of what it's like right now. And you can actually view a lot of the park from areas outside the park. So the one in the middle, you can see Mount Blackburn, which is in the back. And that's one of the most beautiful peaks in the park. It's my favorite because it's close to the Kennecott area where I work in the summertime. But you also have the opportunity to see some aurora borealis, which is really nice. Both of these two things take a little bit of planning and trying to think ahead. Also trying to make sure that you have the right resources. Making sure that your car is in well working order, making sure you've notified people of what your travel plans are. I literally do this every day after I leave from work so that I can make sure that somebody knows where I am and when they expect to see me back. So those are a couple things to think about. What you can expect for this is it's really breathtaking. On those really clear, crisp days, you really get great views. And it's just very calm and relaxing. And so that's something that you could look forward to if you were coming. And sometimes even the shoulder seasons has that level of experience too, because it's a little bit quieter. So that's a little bit of what I've got. And Valerie might have some more questions for me to kind of elaborate if there's anything else that I didn't touch on. And I could also go into some more detail of any of the things that I've already touched on.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. So I do want to clarify because we're looking at the winter slide, and I wanted to ask you about that. So I'm glad you covered it because it is a question that I get from the community. And then, is the McCarthy Road and are the McCarthy Road and the Besna Road even serviced in the winter, or is it like, if you want to go, you're going to be cross country skiing or something, snow machining, something like that?
That's a really good question, and important for people to know, especially before they get all the way out here. The McCarthy Road is not maintained during the wintertime. It varies. Sometimes you might get lucky, and the state of Alaska does kind of run through there sometimes throughout the winter, but not on a complete schedule. And so I wouldn't count on anything being easy to travel through there. It's probably best if you were going to go on snow machine, or some people might just try it out with four-wheel drive vehicle and chains. But you certainly need to do your research and call in advance and ask for details on that. The Debesna Road is maintained by the state of Alaska. And again, though, it can be hit or miss just based on the weather. And if we get a big, dump of snow, it might be a little bit before, it gets completely cleared to the point of being, easy to travel on again. And again, planning ahead, getting the research of like, did you call the visitor center? Maybe ask us and let us know. I'm thinking of this trip to go up to Nebezna, and is there anything I need to know? So yeah, it's good to know
Yeah.
those things.
Is it the case that if someone wanted to go drive one of those roads, like it would be a good idea to call and let you all at the headquarters know, hey, I'm planning to drive it this day, because then at least someone else knows, like you were saying, someone else knows where you are.
Sure. And what we recommend usually is just to let a third party know that information. You can call us, but it's harder for us to follow up on you
Sure.
afterwards. You might be coming back on a Saturday, and maybe we're not in the office that day. But definitely let somebody else know your travel plans. And I think that will really help with your sort of emergency protocols, and go prepared with some sort of device that you'd be able to notify in the case of emergency as well.
That's great advice. Okay, so let's do kind of a change of topics. Let's see. Maybe it's not that big of a difference. So here's a question. I'm going to just pull it up on the screen so everyone can see it. So what's the number one thing? I love asking this question. What's the number one thing you wish people knew that you don't get asked about often enough?
Okay, so I'm going to cheat. I have two answers to that.
Okay.
One of them is actually, I've got a slide to show you, is you can see our park if you're flying from the lower 48 up to Alaska, if you sit on the right-hand side of the plane as you're looking forward. So I think like it's not like people ask me about it enough because it's not in their mind whenever they're making that stretch of the trip. But I love being able to tell people about it because I almost always plan where my seat is on the plane based on being able to see out the window. And this is the Malaspina Glacier, which is a very big Piedmont glacier. It is the size of Rhode Island, so it's hard to fathom, but it does help you get an idea. If you're looking at this from a plane, and it still looks really big, it's pretty epic and pretty amazing. So I wanted to show that. And then also here's another view of our park. This is Icy Bay, so people can sometimes see this if it's a clear day. And I was pretty lucky back in October and got to get these views. So that's really cool. And then the other thing, and this I'll leave this up there just as a kind of a lead into it. My second thing is that I love people asking me a little bit about getting off the beaten path. We get a lot of the same questions all the time, but it's nice to get a challenging question about somewhere that is maybe new or is out in the backcountry. And we have so much to explore, and it just takes a little extra time and effort to be able to kind of plan for those things, ask the right questions, pack everything appropriately, all those kinds of things. But I love getting those questions because I love talking about all the opportunities. There's so many amazing things and so many unique experiences. You can hike on glaciers, you can hike up mountains, you can enjoy beautiful vistas. That usually to get out into the backcountry, you have to take a flight there, which is an amazing opportunity to understand like the size and immensity of the park. And all that just leads to a really memorable experience. And so that's why I think it's kind of my favorite thing to talk about.
Yeah, because it's funny for you, um, where you work during the summer in the South District is kind of like if there were a crowded part of Wrangell-St. Elias National Park and Preserve, the McCarthy and Kennecott area is that part of the park.
Hmm.
It's, crowds being relative in this case because it's a huge amount of space and the park is
Yep.
not one of the most visited in the country. Um, so I remember, this is just a really quick sidebar, that one of the first pieces of travel media that I ever saw about Wrangell-St. Elias was, gosh, at least 10 years ago. It was a Far magazine, and it was a writer who flew into a lodge within the park. And I don't even remember which lodge it was at this point. It was this luxury lodge in the park. And I had never seen Wrangell-St. Elias presented that way with these incredible photos and no roads, no nothing. It was absolutely stunning. So if you are watching this and you have the budget, the resources, and the interest, it sounds like you should give Jamie a call and chat with her about some of her suggestions for really getting off the beaten path, even in a place that doesn't really have a very beaten path to begin with. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
So one more question for you, and then we'll wrap
Mhm.
everything up. So either maybe somebody's visiting in the winter and they don't feel like they have the resources and capabilities to explore the park, or maybe they're visiting Alaska in the summer, but they're not going to make it all the way into Wrangell-St. Elias, McCarthy, down the Nebezna Road. What are the other ways that they can support the park and preserve, even if you don't visit?
Yeah. I would say like support and maybe even learn a little bit about the park. Our website is a really good place for some really neat research that's going on. And so you can learn about the park in that way and support us by learning and sharing with others what you've learned. There's also a nonprofit that works with us at our bookstore, which is Alaska Geographic. And if you're excited about supporting us, like that's one way that they directly support us. And their website, you could just Google Alaska Geographic, and it's a really neat place just to kind of look. And a lot of the public lands across all of Alaska have a bookstore with them, and so you can kind of see their different merchandising and items that you can purchase to support the parks. And I think just being able to kind of, I don't know, play around on the internet, learn about us. We do have an app that you can go in and learn about just Wrangell-St. Elias specifically. The NPS app, you could go search for that and find it. It has all the national parks, but it also has one little section for each of the parks so that you can find the specifics about trip planning. And that's one way to kind of learn and just get to know it. And again, just being able to share that information and share the things that you learned, I think is a good way to support us as well.
Yeah. Right. That's great. I need to download the National Park app. That's
Yeah.
my call out there on me. The other thing I would say from my experience to augment that is that even if you can't go down one of the roads in the park in the summer, the Copper Center Visitor Center is a fabulous place to stop and stretch your legs, learn about the park. There's a trail there, right? A really nice,
Hmm.
kind of flat, easy-ish trail by Alaska
Yes.
standards. Yeah, that's a great, if you can't, that's where I've been. I've actually never been down into the park. I have been to Hubbard Glacier. I just was there on a cruise, but
Nice.
yeah. So that's another way that you can stop, and the gift shop is there, and you can learn about the park, and you can get inspired to return. You will be inspired to return. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. There's so many ways that even if you can't go all the way into this 13 million acre area, you can still support the national park and preserve and get inspired to return for sure. Okay, well, I think that just about wraps it up. As you might have noticed as you were watching this video, there were a couple call out boxes in the upper corner. Those are links that will just help you learn more about the national park and preserve. And I just want to say thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you again for joining me and sharing about the park. Again, if you have any questions, put them down in the comments and I will make sure they get answered either by me or by someone from the National Park Service. You'll also find in the caption of this video relevant links, just to make it easier for you. So however you like to find the link and click it to learn more about Wrangell-St. Elias, it's all there for you. Thanks again, Jamie. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.